Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
Mickey, that's a flower you're holding up. It's red. What does it signify?
It's a hibiscus. It signifies the traditional honeymoon period, Bob. I'm on my honeymoon with Biden, and you won't see any pissy criticism of our president from me.
And he has made no unkind remarks about you either, I noticed. So this is like a full-fledged rapprochement.
Well, it's just for this week. But
yeah, I know. No. I expect him to unload, within a few days.
No, I mean, on my end, I've been unloaded on, but not by him.
Hey, I have some criticisms of him that I will trot out. At least one, I think. Yeah, I think I have one. Modest.
Oh, I can see the thunderclouds already forming, but I don't see where he's fucked up yet. I mean, the inaugural speech, he didn't. My fear was he would try to get all flowery and moving and grandiloquent, and he didn't do that. He gave a very pedestrian speech that was appropriate for the moment. It had one sort of obvious incongruity where he said we have to bring unity. On the one side, we have horrible racists, and we have to reject them. Well, that's not. You could do that more gracefully than he did, and that was the central failing of the speech. Was instead of saying, "Oh, they're horrible racists on the other side," he could have appealed to them. But
he didn't say. He didn't explicitly. I think I know the line you're talking about. I think Karl Rove complained about this on the Fox commentary afterwards. In fact, I believe I can quote it. Is it the one where he says, "Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we are all created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, and demonization have long torn us apart."
Yes, when I read through the speech again, that was the one that stuck in my craw.
And I think
there's a way to do it without seemingly to condemning the half you want to appeal to as racist.
Well, let's flesh it out, because I think maybe some people right now are thinking, "Hey, Mickey, if you weren't a racist, you wouldn't object to this." But no, I think the thinking on the Trump side among a lot of people, the reaction that Karl Rove was talking about was they don't consider themselves racists or maybe even nativists, but they know that a lot of Democrats think all Trump supporters are like that. So they take that as a veiled reference to them, and they're like, "Wait a second, if this is the way you conceive the division, then no, you're not gonna bring us back together."
Right. He could say, "We can all come together while rejecting racism. We're all Americans," and that. I mean, there's a way to do it. And also, he was obviously appealing to his supporters who do think the other side is racist.
Right.
So,
I mean,
refraining from making that appeal was part of the unity project that I think he failed at.
More generally, if he is serious about uniting the country, he is going to have to let go of the instinct to appeal to his base. You've won the election. Just focus on the job. If there was a line that I would have added along these very lines, it would have been, when he says, "To those of you who voted against me, I say, give me a chance." I think he should have said, "And to those who voted for me, I ask you to recognize that the vast majority of those who voted against me are good people who want a better America as they see it, and we should not judge them by the actions of a few," or something like that.
That would have been very good.
Yes, it would have been excellent, if I do say so myself. And it shouldn't be that hard, and it should be pretty obvious that that's what you need.
Yeah.
But
yes, he's doing it also with the pandemic. I mean, he pledged to do 1 million vaccinations a day. Trump is doing 939,000 vaccinations a day. So instead of saying, Trump didn't leave us a plan, but in some respects it was a good start. We're making it better. We're building on the efforts of Fauci before or something, and we're improving them, and we're planning and we're taking it from there. Instead, he'd say Trump was a dismal failure. You're left with nothing.
Well, I don't
and
I don't see how he can turn
partisan
around
bullshit.
I don't see how he can turn around and commend Trump on the COVID front, having run on the platform that Trump is almost single-handedly responsible for the pandemic. That would be a real 180.
He's a politician. This is the time when one does that 180. This is the inauguration, when we come together and we stop attacking the other party in political terms, especially if you want to have bipartisan unity.
But the other thing is, like, I think, especially after January 6th, the idea is you appeal to Trump's base without trying to rehabilitate Trump. Who wants to rehabilitate Trump? They're about to impeach him. I mean, it's like, I don't blame him for not, especially the guy didn't even show up for the inauguration. I don't blame him for not praising Trump. This is not the political moment where that's the goal. The goal is to win over Trump supporters. Yeah. And
maybe it's just because Trump's off Twitter, but he really does seem to be fading pretty rapidly, at least in my consciousness. And the other factor that's at play here is it's becoming clear to Republicans how much he fucked up, not just in the siege of the Capitol, but in the Georgia primary. His selfishness blew the Georgia primary, and it's become clear to Republicans how important that fuck up was, and they're lying to themselves if they're not pissed off at him for that. And I see that at least in my little corner of the Twitterverse, and so he really screwed himself on the way out the door.
Yeah, and I think that was very much on people's minds. I mean, one reason I wondered whether impeachment was a good idea was because it's like, just let him stew in his own juice. The Republicans are, they were blaming him for Georgia, and then they blamed him for January 6th, as they should. But for better or worse, apparently we were told today they're going to, the impeachment article is going to the Senate on Monday, right?
Right. I actually don't understand that, because as you know, I don't think they should go ahead with it I don't think Pelosi would go ahead with it unless she's sure she has the votes. And apparently they're not sure they have the votes.
In the Senate, you mean to convict?
Yeah. Unlike you, I think, well, what's the point? The whole point of the exercise is to disqualify Trump, to knock him out of the race in 2024. Although if you're a Democrat, he seems easily beatable at this point. So why do that? But the Republicans really want to get rid of him. So they don't want him hanging over their heads. So why do it if you're not going to accomplish the goal? I mean, it makes why does it help the Democrats from their posture now, which is that everybody hates Trump, to Trump was acquitted in the Senate? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't understand. No, I have not thought this was a good idea. Now, I understand, like, if I had been one of the people in Congress on January 6th who felt that their lives were threatened, I'd be pretty pissed at him, and I might impeach him just out of spite, but I do not quite understand the logic. Now, I can see getting a different kind of mileage out of this, leaving aside what it does to him. And there are interesting questions about which helps the Democrats more. If he were convicted and precluded from running again, is that really helping the Democrats, or is it better to let him run rampant and do more damage maybe to the Republican Party than he would otherwise?
Like I say, I think the Republicans have a stronger interest in this than the Democrats. I don't quite understand the Democratic thinking, unless they're worried like he might win.
Well,
he'll mobilize the base in the midterms.
The totally different kind of mileage I can imagine getting out of it is the pedagogy. The indictment is that he incited this by, among other things, spreading a lot of misinformation. So they can call up, they can quote all of these untrue things he said about the election. And if they really have their house in order, they can persuasively, vividly debunk a number of specific claims that Trump made. And now I'm not naive about the prospects for converting vast numbers of Republicans who currently consider the election fraudulent that it wasn't. But if they could just break off 10% who suddenly realized the guy just was not reliable and it wasn't so obviously a fraud, that would be real progress.
But
now
go ahead. They're trying to make it short and sweet and quick, so that the educational function is sort of at war with that. B, the idea that you're committing treason by denying that the voting was fair is the weakest part of their case. The strongest part of their case, I think we agree, is that when the mob attacked the Capitol, Trump didn't come to the aid of the beleaguered Congresspeople. So it has those problems. I think it's setting up this whole campaign to deplatform a lot of opposition media organizations, including Fox, OANN, and Newsmax. I mean, it's not just the fringes. They're not just deplatforming the Oath Keepers or whoever the crazy fringe elements are. They're deplatforming the main media voices against them.
Okay,
and they're trying to get the FCC or the cable companies to somehow kick them off cable. And it's sort of a concerted effort, not just on social media. And this might help that. Okay,
wait, but before we get to that, you're saying that the strongest part of their argument is that he did nothing to stop the mob. But as Andrew McCarthy pointed out in National Review, one of the big mistakes they made in rushing to prepare the article of impeachment is that they did not include a dereliction of duty charge, right. which they should have. But so
some of us tweeted about that in real time.
Right, and it's all about incitement. That's the indictment. Now they can use that tweet that he did about Mike Pence during the insurrection, right? That I think is gold.
I thought there was one phrase in the articles and other actions, and that they could drive a truck through the and other actions part. Or so, there's some vague elastic clause. They can bring it up.
Maybe, but the misinformation is very clearly part of the article. And you're saying, well, that's not enough to convict on. Well, they can convict on anything they want. But in any event, right. I'm talking about using it as a vehicle for pedagogy and persuasion. Now, meanwhile, Steve Bannon is over there claiming that that Trump should welcome the opportunity to get all this evidence out there of how fraudulent the election was. And, look, these guys are pretty good propagandists. Maybe they could sow seeds of doubt among people who are now doubtful. Who knows?
It's great for Trump to be back in the news. I mean, that was the central problem with his impeachment. They've gotten rid of Trump. He's fading. He's off in Florida. Now they're bringing him back on center stage and giving him a megaphone for a month, basically.
Fine,
but there's no way it's going to be done in less than 2 weeks.
But if they sit him down and just confront him with specific claim after specific claim that he has made and show that they're wrong, I don't think that's a good day for him. Because his fans will be watching that.
I'm not so sure, and it means that anything he says is going to be covered like a tweet. So they say the vote count was accurate, and he says it's inaccurate, and you're a bunch of liberal assholes, and they sort of get equal weight.
It has to be done very skillfully. They're going to have to bring the right witnesses in to debunk what he says. Anyway, I doubt they will do this, right? I don't understand what their game is. I'm still not clear on, traditionally I've heard that as soon as the articles go to the Senate, the trial has to start. I'm still hearing things about how they could nonetheless delay or declare recess in the trial or something.
Yeah, I don't think that's a big problem. They started on Monday and they give Trump, a few days to prepare his defense.
Well, now what were you saying about the So what's the connection between the deplatforming and the impeachment?
In other words, their complaint against the right-wing media is they spread the lie that the election was fraudulent. So if they make the election lie being the center part of the complaint, that sort of dovetails with this seemingly coordinated campaign to deplatform off of cable, Fox and OANN and Newsmax. And I'm certainly no friend of Fox. I mean, but it's slightly ominous.
Who is deplatforming Fox, or for that matter, OANN?
Oh, if you read the web this morning, it's all over. Oliver Darcy and Nicholas Kristof, and they're all coming out and saying, why do cable companies have to carry this? And there's there's articles on under what circumstances can they cut off a company, and the problem is if they cut off Fox News, they lose Fox Football maybe, and B, there is an actual sort of common carrier like thing where if a company comes that pays you money for a slot, it's hard to turn them down. So
also, I don't think Fox can threaten to pull football from the cable. I mean, they paid $1 jillion for NFL rights. They're not going to sit there and refuse to broadcast it. That's not a very persuasive threat. But, and Fox is a different network from Fox News. But anyway, no, until 2 days ago, I would have said that as for Fox is an ally because Fox was being relatively moderate compared to OAN and Newsmax, but apparently now, feeling the heat from OAN and Newsmax, Fox is moving back toward Trumpism. They gave, what's her name, Maria Barta whatever, she's getting a nighttime slot, right?
Bartiromo.
She's hardcore, man.
And they fired the guy who called Arizona in Biden's favor. So he's sort of the sacrificial lamb.
I don't think he was in charge of the call, but he was on the decision desk, and he's a highly regarded journalist, unlike Maria Bartiromo.
And he's the guy who defended it on air, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know about the...
It seems a little early to me.
Well, in retrospect, they were a little bit over their skis, even though technically they were vindicated. I mean, when they called Arizona, they didn't imagine a margin of victory of 10,000 votes or whatever it was. But
is that true? Okay.
No.
It just seemed like there was enough uncertainty that if that you don't call the race then.
No, they wouldn't have. No, they thought it was not going to be that close when they called it that early. So, anything else about the inauguration?
It was a good show. It was very well produced. The aesthetics of it were extremely successful given what they had to work with.
So you liked Lady Gaga's dress then?
I hated Lady Gaga. I always hate Lady Gaga. Wait. But I was impressed.
She can sing.
I was impressed with J-Lo. J-Lo's performance was pretty amazing. I didn't know she could sing at all. Now, the question is, how much is it technically aided? It was really extremely good, and she had this one incredible note that lasted forever. But there are technical ways that they make it better than it actually is, with pitch control and everything. So I don't know.
Even in real time, even if they're performing live through a microphone?
I think so. That's the whole point, yeah. It's... but it was still impressive. I mean, she did a great job, and... That little girl from L.A. was unbelievable. Everybody loves her, the poet.
I doubt that, but
I thought she won over pretty much everybody. But anyway, so overall, and the speech was okay, and it hit the spot. Mm. So everybody, it was a relative success.
I mean, vocally, I was actually most impressed with Lady Gaga. It's hard to sing that song well. She really sang it. Now, Garth Brooks, first of all, could he not have been troubled to stay for the entire thing? What was it in his busy schedule that precluded that?
Did the other ones stay?
What?
I thought didn't the others go up the same way they went?
Did they all go up that way? Okay, never mind then.
But he had to stop and give COVID to everybody on the platform.
I guess it was because he was running around giving all former presidents COVID-19.
He always does that.
Yeah,
But he could have made an exception here.
Okay, no, you're right. I take it back.
He's the angel of death.
Then I'm just going to complain about his wearing blue jeans in the inauguration and leave it at that.
I thought he was fine, except for the COVID business. I was happy he was there.
Now, you know what the Bannon line on all this is? I mean, I was very curious to hear how they would handle the actual arrival of the inauguration. Bannon having told people there was literally 100%, as he puts it, 100% metaphysical certitude that Donald Trump would be sworn in on January 20th. And it turns out that the thing they made a huge deal of is that there weren't many people at the inauguration. Now, somebody like you or me might say, well, that's because it's a pandemic and then the security concerns, so they only put out like a few hundred chairs and left it at that, right? But no, he is seeing, for them, it's like a cover up because Biden couldn't have drawn a crowd. And I mean, they're going on and on. So here, you want to hear a little Bannon on this?
That's kind of insane, but sure.
This is good.
And the reason is we have an engaged audience. I need you. Okay, stop the whining, stop the sniveling. I want everybody to man up. We got to get to the ramparts. And here's why. I'm going to bring Boris Epstein on from Andrews in a second, but I got to show that shot. Can we get this shot up? Here's why this is a joke. Right now, we're an hour or two away from the what's going to happen at the Capitol today, the inauguration ceremony, in the inauguration address. There's nobody here, ladies and gentlemen. They can't blame this on COVID. This guy, for 84 million votes, where are the people? This is what they've been trying to cover up, and now it's exposed to the whole world to see. What President Obama had.
So this becomes Exhibit Z in the proof that the election was fraudulent. And for good measure, I gotta play a little snippet of his one of his co-hosts, Raheem Kassan. They also made a big deal about the security, all the National Guard, which I did think was kind of over the top. But the tens of thousands National Guard in the city as signs of Biden's authoritarian tendencies, even though actually Trump was president then. But anyway, I want you to hear this guy's riff about he had started off on that, but then he gets into, the way Biden did, those lights along the mall instead of that they,
right.
Okay, so this is good. This is good.
That is what an authoritarian regime does.
Wait a second, that's not loud enough.
CNN said they were Biden's arms reaching out to embrace America, Bob.
Bannon has played that clip at the beginning of at least 3 podcasts. And what this really is the counter, the kind of the other side of the coin from that interpretation of those lights. So this is like this Raheem Kassan guy. Whoops.
They were lights on the runway for the secret QAnon plane to land.
I hope I haven't screwed this up. Let me see if I can do this.
The minds of those people as well, with people above them interrogating their social media feeds for wrong things.
Okay, here
that is what an authoritarian regime does. The Biden regime doesn't want people to see a sparsely populated national mall, so the Biden regime puts on a cathedral of lights like the Nazi minister of armaments, Albert Speer, organized for his good friend Adolf Hitler. That is the work of regimes. And this is what we are facing now. All the hyperbolic talk, all of the theoretical talk about the possibility of communism and communist authoritarianism coming to the United States, that ends already. We are now living it. And if you are unsure that that is the case, or you think I am being too strong on the point,
I do think you're being too strong, Raheem, but that's just me. That's just me.
I thought them all looked pretty great. You didn't catch
the Hitlerian overtones?
I should be more sensitive to Hitlerian overtones. I mean, I'm supposed to be, that's my heritage, but I just thought it looked pretty cool. I thought they did a very good job.
It did look nice. It reminded me of Joe Biden's arms reaching out to embrace America. I gotta say, that was one of the worst pieces of journalism ever. Who is that guy?
Wasn't it Chris Chaliza?
No. I don't think.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was that other guy.
It was the guy I get mixed up with their media commentator guy, whose name I also can't remember. But anyway, it was pretty bad. So,
I thought it was good enough that I thought it would leave a lasting positive. I'm probably crazy. It's probably going to disappear from our national consciousness in 3 days. But, I thought it was a success for Biden, and I'm now terrified that he's going to pass this big amnesty bill. I mean, there's this, when I voted for Trump, okay? Mm-hmm. I thought it was stupid in retrospect because, A, Trump went mad after the election and showed he was a lot crazier, or had vast reservoirs of craziness he hadn't showed us. And B, it looked like Trump was going to retain the Senate, so the threat of a big immigration bill was receding. Now, it's interesting, Bob, that the things you criticized me for being obsessed about also turn out to be Joe Biden's number one priority. Funny how that happens. It's not just Mickey, okay?
There's a ray of hope, Mickey. I heard it on the DMZ podcast. That I mean, your complaint, part of your complaint about this would be it's amnesty without any security, added security at the border, right? And
well, that's the Gang of Eight bill show they can add a lot of phony security and pretend that it's an enforcement and amnesty bill. No, there are several concrete things that restrictionists want to do before they'll take a chance on another amnesty.
What are they?
The main one is E-Verify, some sort of employment system where you can't get a job, at least with the mainstream companies, if you don't have, if you're not authorized to work. Some entry-exit system so you can't overstay your visa. I would say a wall. Others on my side don't care that much about the wall. But now there are all these asylum loopholes that need to be closed. You have to tighten up the criteria. You have to get rid of the Flores decision, which is says you have to release kids after a certain period of time, which in practice means they release their parents too. And you have to get rid of the Angelina Jolie Wilberforce Act, where kids who come unauthorized get released into the country. So Biden's going in the opposite direction on those three. So it's unlikely he's not going to reverse those. But if you did all those things, yes, people would be willing to take a chance.
Well, the wall ain't happening for sure. I would have thought in principle E-Verify has a chance, and that would go a long way to please people like you.
Well, the people on Biden's side insist on the amnesty before the E-Verify, which gives them a shot to get rid of the E-Verify after they have the amnesty. So it's a question of timing. The other thing is, if Biden was smart, he would give Republicans the wall. Republicans are total cheap dates on the wall. The wall will buy him more amnesty than any other thing he could do.
Yeah, but on the Democratic side, that has become this huge symbolic issue. He can't do that.
Oh, he can say it just makes the concession seem grander. I'm going against my base and giving him this huge concession, and then he doesn't have to give any of the other things, and it'll be an incredibly pro loose borders package. But you're right. He's probably too stupid to do that.
The wall ain't happening. It is. It's the biggest problem of all, probably, with his base. I was listening to the DMZ podcast, and Bill Scher emphasized that, although there are no big security measures in the thing now, it's just an opening bid, and some of this stuff could, in principle, get added, right?
Right. No, the Republicans are incredible cheap dates. They will all come over if he says, "Oh, instead of one drone at the border, I'm adding 2 drones," or I'm throwing some money at the problem, or I'm requiring them to pay back taxes, which basically means if there is already a tax judgment against them. Otherwise, a lot of them are going to get refunds. There's a whole series of fake concessions that they made with the Gang of Eight bill. The biggest concession that Republicans will go for is if they say, at the end of this, you get a green card, but you don't get citizenship, okay? Because that appeals to Republicans who really only care that these people don't vote. They don't, and they can say, well, we're holding off the fact they're voting, which is a total fake concession, because if you care about the labor market impact, if they're working and they're in the country and they're attracting more people, because they don't care that much about voting, they do care about working, that's almost as bad. So there's the citizenship con. That's the final card they can play. And the important point is there's all this talk now about how will the Democrats abolish the filibuster? Maybe they realize that in the long run, the filibuster may come back to bite them. No, this amnesty is their long run plan. That is what's going to demographically ensure Democratic control. They might lose the Congress. They're very likely to lose the House in 2022. This is their shot. They will eliminate the filibuster. Okay, they're not going to say, oh, maybe we should have doubts. They're going to do it.
Okay, wait. A couple of things. I mean, first of all, remember, Trump did make some inroads on the Latino vote this time. Don't lose hope, Mickey. It may be...
No, the Latino vote is, in 30 years, yes, and it's better, more favorable than was previously thought, but it's still mostly
So how many
Democratic.
voters are we talking about through amnesty? I mean, first of all, how many people? And then if you assume that, 60% of them vote or something, or 50%?
Well, first, he's sped it up to 8 years, so and there's some groups that get a special fast track. So the Dreamers will be voting by the next presidential election in his plan. It's quite accelerated.
And do you know how many of those there are?
Well, there's 700,000 Dreamers.
Well, that's nothing nationally. That's nothing.
But he can look at the fine print and how he defines Dreamers. We'll see. They expand every. They're going to have an essential worker category probably that they're going to try to blow up to as big as possible. So it's a long-term plan, Bob. It's not going to win them the next election, but it is going to guarantee them power for a generation. That's what they think.
But here's the thing about getting rid of the filibuster that I just heard about. Apparently, I don't totally understand this, but when there's a 50-50 split in the Senate, before they can get down to business at all, before they can even vote on whether they end the filibuster, apparently Schumer and McConnell have to work out rules of the road because there needs to be some kind of joint agreement between the parties before they can do anything at all. And McConnell can hold out filibuster as like leverage, or
well, he's trying to do that, but
hold this out as leverage to not.
He's trying to do that, but he lost the election, and Schumer's not going to give in, so he's not going to win that. I mean, I don't even see why he tried to do that. It seems like such an obvious futile power play.
Well, in principle, though,
nobody thinks he's going to get Schumer. Why would Schumer throw away his victory the first day in office? I mean, Trump did that, but why would Schumer do that?
But am I right in gathering that McConnell could do one of these government shutdown kind of threats where he actually keeps the Senate from, in effect, functioning, and then he finds out whether he gets more of this blame or Schumer gets more of the blame, because he's only asking for the preservation of Senate rules as they exist, after all.
I've never understood, you may be right, I've never understood there's always this vague nuclear threat in the background that if the other party doesn't cooperate, that the Senate would just grind to a halt and stop. So yes, you may be right. I don't see how he wins that because people know what the results of the election were.
Yeah,
they
50-50.
know. Yeah, but they know that means with the tiebreaker being the vice president that the Democrats won. So the Democrats should get the. But
apparently Harris doesn't get to weigh in until McConnell and Schumer come to an agreement about things. That's what I didn't realize until this week. But apparently it's true.
It's our brilliant system of government, Bob. But
it's really a great.
But I don't think McConnell wins that.
Here's how bad our system of government is. Just briefly, when I looked at the Electoral Vote Count Act, or whatever it's called, from the 19th century that was governing the procedure on January 6th, I realized that, if any party controls both the House and the Senate, they can overturn a presidential election. They really can. That power is in that act, and I thought that's crazy. I still think it's crazy, but I also realized, if this is the way they chose the president, if just the Congress and if Senate and the House chose the president, that might be an improvement. You would at least be more, it would have some of the virtues of a parliamentary system where you actually have a unified executive and legislative, anyway.
Under your interpretation of the Constitution, the winner of the electoral count would be president unless it's close, in which case we turn into a parliamentary system and the party with the majority in both houses throws out the election results. I can't believe the Supreme Court wouldn't intervene in that situation.
And declare that act unconstitutional, maybe. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that's I.
You had that annoyed look on your face, like I was interrupting you.
Oh, I just have the annoyed look on my face.
Are you wearing? Are you dressed up? Are those lapels? What is that?
This is some fancy sort of half formal jacket that looks sort of either stylish or stormtroopery or German semi-fascist.
I was going to note the Hitlerian overtones.
It's Speerian. This is the theme.
Yeah.
This is the theme of the day.
Speer.
Is Albert Speer comes back. I just wanted to back to impeachment. You were saying that they definitely don't have the votes for impeachment. I'm going to hold you to that because I think the conviction, because I think he may well be convicted.
I would just add this asterisk.
Okay, now we're covering our ass.
Okay. I don't know shit about politics. That's the end of the asterisk. I have no idea. But my gut tells me, and my gut has been right. I mean, between 40 and 50% of the time in the course of my life, my gut tells me they don't have the votes. I really don't see it. It's like, yeah, they would all love to see him go, but unless the polling numbers change, you're taking a big risk. Now, it may be that if you look at senators who don't have to run for 6 years and they can realistically hope that, people will calm down, maybe, but it's still a gamble.
Well, I didn't realize that Murkowski was up for re-election, and she's one of the big people who I would expect to flip against Trump. I mean, she's already flipped vocally. So, no, you may be right, but anyway, it seems entirely possible that this early in the 2-year cycle that they would say we can get away with this one.
And again, there's the question of who is that good for? I mean, you may be right. I kind of tend to think you're right. It may be better for the Republicans than for the Democrats. I mean, it seems to me the Democrats are in a sense in good shape. I mean, in any event, don't you think that January 6th has meant that the presidential nominating process for the Republicans is going to be more divisive among Republicans, for the party than it would have been had the riot not happened on January 6th?
But it was going to be divisive anyway.
And now the question is it more divisive if Trump is convicted or less divisive?
That is a good point. If you have Trump hanging around the sidelines, not a candidate, he can sort of maybe wreak more damage than if he is a candidate and somebody actually beat him.
Well, he could try to start a third party. It won't be successful, but it could do damage.
The third party seems to be very destructive, yes.
Oh, wait, Bannon's got a great thing. Okay,
no, he can't. He can start a third party, but he can't be the candidate. So he's going to nominate Melania? I mean, he's going to nominate his son? I mean, what's he going to do?
No, Bannon's got it's not his idea. Some guy on Twitter who had this idea, and then Bannon had him on the show. But that was so day one, January 20th, is what you just heard. That was the Bannon messaging. The next day, I mean, remember, Bannon has a big problem. He's trying to hang on to this big audience he's built up amid the drama of maybe overturning the election. So he's got to and you heard what day one was like for him. So day two, he's got here's what we do. Trump runs for a House seat in Florida. He can win. Then he is elected majority leader. Then he impeaches Joe Biden. And then he steps down from majority leader. I think is the idea, he didn't say this, is that everyone knows Trump could not be a successful majority leader. I mean, sure, give him 3 days to impeach, but then get him the hell out. And then, of course, Trump runs for election as president in years hence. That's the plan. It's
well,
not. What?
We're talking about if he's banned from office by this trial, how can he run for president? He can't. He's banned from office.
He's not banned from public office. What kinds of office can he be banned from?
He's banned from any federal office, so he couldn't run for Congress.
Well, is Congress a federal office as opposed to it is?
Yes,
you're sure of this? You went to Harvard Law School.
99.9%.
Oh, sounds like there's some doubt creeping in.
There's always doubt. I once talked to Bob Woodward because our magazine had said The Brethren was the best political book of the year, so the reward was
your magazine, which coincidentally was owned by the same people who owned the Washington Post where he worked. But anyway, go ahead.
No, it was owned by Charlie Peters. What are you talking about?
Oh, I thought this was when you were at Newsweek. I withdraw my cynicism.
So my reward is I got to have lunch with Bob Woodward, which was a huge thing for me. And as we're parting, Woodward says, that incident in the book could have been wrong. You go, whoa, what the fuck are you talking about? You're Bob Woodward. Men? What?
Is this All the President's Men? Which book?
No, this is The Brethren.
Oh, The Brethren.
But I didn't realize that this is a common shtick with Bob Woodward. He always says, I could have been wrong. There's a 0.001% chance it was wrong. The epistemological uncertainty is he's constantly talking about that. Yeah. So it wasn't a big confession. But if Bob Woodward can be uncertain, I can be uncertain.
Mickey Kaus can be uncertain.
Yeah.
That's an excellent comparison. I often hear the two names in the same sentence.
Bob, I said, if... I was putting myself on a lower plane and you're going for the cheap shot.
You were playing somewhat the game he was playing, trying to establish your credibility through false humility. Would you not say that?
It's genuine humility in terms of reporting. Jesus.
Oh, I don't know.
So I do have a statesman-like solution to the question of is it constitutional to go ahead with the trial, which is you say, yes, it's constitutional. If you actually impeach the guy while he's still in office, you can have a follow-through trial, but you can't go back in time and impeach Obama after he's left office, or impeach George W. Bush. But sure, if you because it seems to me there's good arguments on both sides of the constitutional case.
Yeah, the very first impeachment, as I understand it, this is before the secretary, long before the Secretary of War was impeached tried for after he left office. It was a case where they were going to impeach a senator, and there were two questions: can you impeach senators, and can you impeach them after they've left? Can you hold the trial after they've left office? They answered the second question first. The Senate decided they could try him after they left office, but then they decided, in answering the other question, it's not our role to impeach senators. We should just, there are other ways the Senate can deal with senators. So the very first, I think, if I got this right, impeachment had the Senate at least affirming its right to try someone after they left office. And then there's the more famous.
But did they convict him? Did they impeach him?
No, they didn't convict because they didn't even try him. They decided they couldn't try him because he was senator, but they could have tried him after he had left office.
But they didn't even impeach him. There are two parts: impeach and try.
I think they impeached him.
Okay,
I'm not sure. Anyway,
satisfies
it was a good
my
podcast.
Criteria.
Good lawfare podcast with Jack Goldsmith.
Under my plan, you could still resign right before you were impeached. But I say, what's so bad about that? That's what Nixon did. It accomplishes the goal of removing the guy from office. So
yeah, we talked about this kind of last.
I didn't make the point of so what. So what's the big deal?
You coined the term reductio ab good thing when we were talking about that.
Oh, you're right. I did make that point.
And you won plaudits for that on Twitter. And a couple of
you're right. I did make that point.
And in the Parrot Room comment section, I think people were impressed with that phrase.
I live for the Parrot Room comment. The Parrot Room comment section is pretty good.
It's very good.
I wouldn't
say
as much.
Compared to all other known, it almost could inspire a person to go to patreon.com/Parrot Room and sign up and then have access to the Parrot Room where you and I speak every week after this podcast.
It's certainly a lot better than the Blogging Heads comment section.
Hey.
Which is...
Can't say you're completely wrong, but there are some good commenters at Blogging Heads. There are.
I take your word for it. So, anyway, I'm actually genuinely worried, obviously, that they are going to break the filibuster and pass a nation-breaking amnesty bill, and even if they don't do that, they can futz around with the reconciliation rules and maybe pass most of it under reconciliation. The big legislation that's passed in recent years has been under reconciliation. Welfare reform passed under reconciliation. Obamacare passed under reconciliation. Apparently, that's the only way you can do business in the Senate. So,
yeah, but you can't do D.C. statehood that way, right?
that's what they say.
That requires you to change the filibuster rule, and that's why I'm all for it.
If you slip the right chocolate liquor to the parliamentarian, maybe you can. You know,
I'm not sure.
so
That's
anyway.
just the kind of reference that would only be gotten by parrot heads, which is to say, people who populate the Parrot Room. Some things don't leave the Parrot Room, and the chocolate liqueur reference is one of them. So wait. What was I going to say? Well, anyway. I know what I was going to say. What Schumer should say is, okay, we're going to do this filibuster thing, assuming that McConnell doesn't really have lethal leverage on that, and but magnanimously, we are not going to pack the Supreme Court. We're not going to change the number of people in the Supreme Court. That would be good. That would be greeted as good news, and they shouldn't try to do that. That's a mistake. DC State.
I think that's not happening anyway. So
I know that's why they should say it. That's the smartest kind of concession to make. I
don't see what concessions regarding the filibuster you can make. People are saying, well, he should issue some statement saying we love the filibuster, we have no intent of changing the filibuster. Well, so then it's harder for them to renege later. Well, it's not that hard. He could make an Iranian nuclear sort of type thing where he says we won't remove the filibuster for a year. I pledge not to do it for a year, but all that means is it's a guarantee that at the end of the year he will do it. So I don't understand McConnell's strategy. It seems weird to me.
Well, I don't understand how much leverage he genuinely has. I gather he could, if he wanted to, threaten to keep the Senate from doing anything at all. That's my current understanding. I could be wrong.
I thought he was a brilliant strategist until he blew Georgia. And so I'm less impressed with his brilliance.
He blew Georgia? Donald Trump blew Georgia.
Well, Trump mainly blew Georgia, but if McConnell had passed the $2,000 checks, they would have won Georgia.
Maybe.
Now, maybe he couldn't do that, but his majority leader, it's his job to whip his troops in line. Not that they ever do that in the Senate, but he should have gotten Karl Rove to run ads about something other than tax cuts and a return to Reagan Republicanism. I mean, he has some influence. He's fucking majority leader.
Okay.
Anyway, give him $1,000 checks. Give him $1,200 checks, Anyway.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. One of many things I don't understand about
my check hasn't showed up, by the way.
So speaking of checks, which leads us to the question of COVID, like this million vaccine a day thing that you alluded to is pretty damn disappointing, right? Biden is basically saying, you know how well Trump's been doing? We're going to do no better than that. I mean, I had heard numbers much more ambitious than this a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I think it's proving to be way too unambitious. When it came out, Josh Barrow said, well, they're setting the bar low so they can meet it. I hope they're setting the bar low so they can exceed it. I
predict that you will soon hear them say this is a floor, not a ceiling, because it's just embarrassingly unambitious. Because this is number of vaccines, not people vaccinated. So they're just saying we'll get like maybe 50 million people vaccinated by like the end of April. That's nothing.
It's the number of jabs.
It's the number of jabs, but people are getting 2 each.
Right. So
it's closer to 50 million.
The current vaccine, it's closer to 50 million.
That's like 1/7 of the population.
But in fact, it'll be like 75 million get one jab and 25 million have 2 jabs or something.
Well, I think there's also the hope that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is going to come through. I think that will be a less desirable one based on the test results, and so we'll see how they decide who gets that. I mean, is that for Republicans or what? I'll tell you
Republicans won't take it because there's a fetal cells connection, I think.
But the Johnson & Johnson, it's a made in America brand, Mickey.
No, I think the Novavax, there's something like that?
There's Moderna.
I thought that was the candidate to be the red vaccine. Ministers are telling their parishioners they can't take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Well, anyway, I'll tell you wait, they are? Seriously?
Somebody on Twitter said, my priest told me it's a total no-go. You can't do that.
And why is that again?
Some abortion fetal cell thing. Fetal cells are somehow used in the process of producing it.
So I guess that rules them out. What they could say is, assuming that, it's not the preferred vaccine for people, is just say, there's so many people who want the vaccine that they, who aren't yet eligible. They can just say, if you're not eligible and you want it, here's the Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah. I must admit, I was worried about the Biden plan because I thought they were going to set up, they have this state system that was very slow to get off the ground, that in some states is starting to take off.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to say, okay, we're scrapping that system. We're superimposing a federal distribution system on top of that, which was sort of duplicative, and there's only so much vaccine to go around. So what was the point? But the California, I live in the largest state of the union. The California state system is so screwed up, and is doing so badly. We're about to become the worst state in the union. We only
what's your percent vaccines as percentage of the population?
It's like 3.4.
Oh, that is bad. We're at 5% here in New Jersey.
Yeah, and I think New York is approaching 6, and the good states, the West Virginias, are approaching 10.
Well, the good states are all these sparsely populated small states. I mean, there's some, just the Dakotas, it's West Virginia. There must be some advantage.
You would not
there.
have thought West Virginia was the most efficient state government in the country, just sort of off the bat.
I tweeted this, and there were theories, but none of them did I find.
Well, apparently, this Lawrence Wright big article in the New Yorker goes into length about how great the governor is.
I'm not sure that's the only thing. I suspect that when you have a lot of small, I don't know. I think it must be in some weird sense a distribution advantage of a lot of small towns. Something about your connection to the healthcare system when you're in that situation as opposed to when you're in a big city.
And he somehow ignored the CDC guidelines and just did it himself. So that contradicts the federal thing. But I mean, the California system, they had an interview with the head of the LA County Board of Supervisors, which is our governing city council. I mean, they run LA County. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, well, we may have some kind of training program because they don't have enough people who know how to give the shots. So we may ask, Sean Penn's organization may come in and provide people to give the shots. They were thinking of things that they should have thought of 6 months ago. And they're just sort of thinking about them now. It's an incredible dereliction of duty. And, if the federal government just said, okay, you assholes are out of the picture, we're taking over, I really wouldn't mind it at this point.
Yeah. There's been a lot. I'm here to tell you, New Jersey's system is no model for the nation. I've interacted with a little pre-registered, gotten the email back that didn't make sense given what, category I was in and so on. But, in defense of Biden, I guess, I think I heard that part of the bottleneck is at the supply end. One reason they can't be more ambitious is, I guess, the two big companies are trotting these out, maybe not as fast as some people had hoped or something. I don't know. Yeah. But another thing I don't understand is how hard is it to ramp up production? I mean, I'm just having trouble believing that if we really thought about this as World War II, right? A real existential, let's mobilize our resources. I have trouble believing we couldn't expand the production faster than it's being expanded.
He talks about Biden talks a lot about the imposing the Defense Production Act, but I don't think he's doing that on the vaccine makers.
No,
which would be the big thing.
I just heard Peter Navarro claiming that there's not much new here in his plan. Of course, Peter Navarro would claim that, and Peter Navarro claims some crazy stuff. You want to hear me criticize Fauci just for the novelty of it?
Sure.
The thing he said about it's a liberating feeling to be able to speak freely, now that Trump's no longer president?
Yeah.
I say, if he wants to be taken as an authority on healthcare guidance by the entire nation, he just keep his mouth completely shut about Donald Trump. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I didn't hear what he said. Maybe they kind of shoehorned it out of it, you know, kind of extracted it from him with leading questions. But the biggest challenge he faces and the Biden administration faces on this issue, or one of the big challenges, is getting all the people in red America to take this seriously when some aren't. And I just think Fauci should not make any comments about Trump.
That's a good point. I don't think it was very hard to get out of him because he's sucking up to the reporters who are asking him the questions, and that's what they want to hear. That's the news bite. He also lied about masks. I mean, he's made a couple of. I'm generally in his favor, but that was a horrible mistake. Well, the Surgeon General was even worse.
And Navarro says that when at the White House meeting where Navarro said we should stop flights from China at the very beginning, Fauci was completely dismissive of the idea. Okay, now you want to hear a quick criticism of Hillary Clinton? Did you see her tweet?
I'll hear a long criticism of Hillary Clinton.
Did you see her tweet? I guess she was on Pelosi and she were in conversation.
Was she still saying that it was all a Russia thing?
Yeah, she says her tweet is, I guess she had discussed this with Pelosi on some podcast. Her tweet is, Speaker Pelosi and I agree. Congress needs to establish an investigative body like the 9/11 Commission to determine Trump's ties to Putin so we can repair the damage to our national security. But not to our body politic, I would say. Anyway, can repair the damage to our national security and prevent a puppet from occupying the presidency ever again. I mean, isn't that kind of what the Mueller thing was about? I mean, did we not go through this?
Yes. No, it's incredibly selfish of Hillary to want to refight that war.
I wonder about that woman sometimes.
You saw that Biden is already being attacked for being soft on Russia by Tom Cotton.
Well, his biggest threat is the bigger challenge is going to be China, where he's going to be under fierce pressure to be hardline. So I'm not quite so worried about Russia. But
doesn't bother me. Did you see the article by Eli Lake about how your boy Burns is going to conduct secret negotiations with Iran, as he has before? And
I'm fine with that.
Being head of the CIA,
I'm fine with that.
Perfect slot for him for that reason.
Did you see Tony Blinken's confirmation hearing where Lindsey Graham said "repeat after me" basically, and
did he do it?
Well, yeah, just on the basic Iran-Israel stuff. Mr. Blinken, do you consider Iran the biggest sponsor of state terrorism? Yes, I do. Do you consider Israel a racist state? No, I don't.
What is your assessment of Blinken's early performance in the blob sweepstakes? Because he did say we're going to put pressure on to stop the war in Yemen, didn't he? Or we're going to stop funding the war in Yemen?
It's good, but it's a complete no-brainer. I mean, it's the first thing you do to appease the progressives, and he probably rightly sees that it's the right thing to do. But on Venezuela, what did he say? We're going to stick with these sanctions and make them try to make them hit the culprits a little harder and more precisely. And then he said, and also they probably need some humanitarian aid. Yeah, why do they need the aid? Because of our sanctions, for one thing. Why don't you just drop the sanctions?
It is true that what is our beef with Venezuela that comes anywhere close to our beef with Iran?
It's ridiculous. And by the way, can I just, leaving aside the question of whether we should go on this crusade for democracy in some countries, whereas meanwhile some of our beloved allies like Saudi Arabia and Egypt are at least as authoritarian as any of the countries we're playing hardball with. In the case of Venezuela, as I understand it, the Maduro victory. I mean, the claim is that he's not a legitimate president. My understanding is that the Supreme Court ultimately validated his victory. And then the reply to that is, well, but he appoints the Supreme Court. Okay, well, that's their system. In our system, presidents appoint Supreme Court justices. And in the year 2000, the Supreme Court weighed in, a conservative Supreme Court, and handed a victory to a Republican candidate. That happens. It's the system.
What?
And it's not grounds for starving all the people to death.
Why can't he claim that, like the Ukraine, that it was when they failed to meet their standards for getting rid of the president, declare that it's an independent constitutive act and it's a new revolution and we have a new president, so he can say it's an independent constitutive act.
Why couldn't Maduro say that? Or
yeah,
maybe he should say that too. But my point is, it's
our
not.
side said in Ukraine.
I don't. Now I may not have those facts right, but I think it's not as obvious a case of him having subverted the democratic process as people claim.
I was convinced by an article in a very far left magazine, a left magazine, not far left, that Venezuela is futile because even if we have a coup in our favor, or if our guy gets in, all the arms in the countryside mean that Maduro would win. It's an unwinnable war. They have the arms. They have us over a barrel. It's a stupid war to fight. The peasants have more guns and troops than the central government, and the peasants are on Maduro's side. So why fight him? You're not going to win.
And, that's something to keep in mind too. I mean, if the peasants are on his side, right? No, it's just crazy. Our foreign policy is completely crazy. On the brighter side, last night I retweeted something about how the Biden administration is saying they are going to review all sanctions with humanitarian ends in mind, among others. And that would be good because the sanction it's just nuts. We're choosing to inflict misery on Cuba, on people in Syria, in Iran, in Venezuela. There's just no coherence to the policy at all.
What we did send tanks into Syria.
Tanks, yeah. Well,
I thought that's the most likely locus of blobby U.S. intervention would be in Syria.
Yeah, well, Biden's not going to pull the troops out of Syria, no, because this is fundamentally a blob operation. The Biden foreign policy, for sure.
And the thing that really gets me when they send troops around to shift the balance of power so we have a voice in shaping the Syrian government, which is none of our business. It doesn't bother me that much if they're just there to defend the Kurds, which these tanks apparently were. But it's a temptation to play geopolitical games to counter Russia in the formation of the Syrian government that would be the quagmire, I think.
Yeah, which is all the crazier because remember, Syria was a Russian ally to begin with. Russia has a naval base there.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. Anyway.
Back to the virus. There is this good news. The cases in the U.S. have gone down. The cases in Britain, where they've had a nasty lockdown, have dropped dramatically. Even in California, the hospitalization rate is going down. And why is that? Is it because of the lockdowns or because of immunity? Seems hard to believe. Or because the virus is somehow dying out naturally and, being replaced by I don't see that either. The deaths have not gone down, so that doesn't make sense.
Well, deaths, just recently, the 7-day rolling average for deaths across the U.S. has gone down a little. Still over 3,000 per day.
Yeah.
But
the
hospitalizations are down nationally a little.
The cases are dropping more rapidly in places.
Yeah. Well,
and does that just mean that it works? Lockdowns work? So why tell us we're going to be in lockdowns until the summer? That just discourages people from locking down.
I think the lockdown has gotten more serious. And just the attitude, judging by how often I see masks these days. And you're right. There's more natural immune. One thing that happens when you've got tens of millions of people having had the thing is you start developing an appreciable amount of immunity, presumably. I would say the vaccine effect is just now starting to kick in that regard. 5% of the nation's not nothing, and apparently 2 weeks after the first shot, you're starting to develop some resistance. I don't know, but I don't get why this isn't a World War II level mobilization.
The Israeli experience suggests that all the punches in the second shot.
Did transmission finally start dropping in Israel as well as deaths?
I don't know, but what I talked about last week, which is that they're discovering that cases are not going down, and their Fauci complained that the first dose was not as effective as Pfizer said, was confirmed again this past week. And the other thing I learned on a massive Zoom call is that when you get the Pfizer vax, the second shot knocks you out. The first shot is nothing.
Oh, really?
The second shot is quite difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, and Fauci said that too. So, it maybe there's a correlation between how bad your reaction is and how effective it is at generating antibodies. You would think that.
Huh. I'll have to tell my mother-in-law. She just got her first one and didn't have any effects at all. Maybe I won't tell her. Why ruin her 2 weeks? So
anyway.
we've been talking more than an hour, Mickey. And we haven't even talked about Steve Bannon's pardon, which we could talk about in the Parrot Room.
I always hate to talk about topic A, which we've now talked about, the vaccine and Biden. And so I have all these topic Bs for the Parrot Room. But the one I want to talk about, and I have completely unprepared for, is Virginia Heffernan compiled a list at the beginning of the Trump administration on the things she was most scared of, just to have a record of it. And at the time, I thought it was completely paranoid and over the top. And since then, I thought maybe it's a little less paranoid. But I actually haven't read it. But
I glanced at it.
Okay, well, we can talk.
We can talk in the Parrot Room.
We talk about did fears of Trump come true, or were they completely absurd?
And I think we should
I don't know what I'm going to say.
I think we should say right now that regardless of what kind of judgment we ultimately pass on her list, we both love Virginia.
I love Virginia. She doesn't love me. She got really pissed at me when we had a debate in Las Vegas, and it was me and Walter Kern and her, and it was the only debate at any book festival anywhere that was stacked in favor of Trump. Now, the people who put it together didn't know that it was stacked in favor of Trump. I think I was supposed to be the pro-Trump person and Walter was the neutral person, or the other way around. Anyway, we were both Walter and I were mildly pro-Trump. And there was a vicious, wonderful argument in which Virginia and Walter held their own, but I think Virginia thought she was sandbagged and I was an asshole.
Well, Virginia was host of Slate's Trumpcast. Is that still going on?
I don't know.
Probably not now, but she's not a Trump fan. True.
But anyway, she's really smart, and it was a great debate. But So
we'll talk about that. I want to talk about Phil Spector in the Parrot Room. He met his end. Oh, also
really?
Hank Aaron. Did Hank Aaron? Yeah, he died. You didn't hear that Phil Spector died?
No. I just don't know what one could say about Phil Spector.
Well, you're the rock and roll expert. I'll extract some insights out of you. Hank Aaron died today, I gather, from the. Is that right? Henry Aaron, the baseball player.
Yes, he did die. Do you know who ran the percussion for Phil Spector?
See, that's what I mean. You're like a rock and roll genius. But the answer is I don't care. But we have established that you're a rock and roll expert, and we'll pursue that in the Parrot Room.
Here's a hint. He was later a congressman.
Hey, Mickey, if people want to know who this person is, you know what they should do? They should go to patreon.com/Parrot Room and become parrot heads. And that is some amazing bait. I'm also going to we will talk maybe a little about Bannon's pardon. Also, I've been inspired by Steve Bannon, and I don't want this to be misinterpreted. I don't think he's a Nazi. But I've been inspired, for reasons I'll explain in the Parrot Room, to start listening to The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shirer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to talk a little about that. But again, I really don't think he's a Nazi. But what else can we talk about? I may want to talk a little bit about QAnon. There's a piece that got a lot of blowback about QAnon, and I think I'm going to be writing about it in my newsletter.
We could talk about Sharon Begley, who died.
Yeah, I knew her very slightly. She was a really good science writer. Did you know her at Newsweek?
No, she was the go-to person for if you wanted a best-selling cover. But Bob, don't leave it in the free. We want to charge money for your Sharon Begley insights.
I'm afraid you've heard most of them just now.
I was
really
hoping you...
I didn't.
I thought you had some beef against her.
No, Sharon Begley? No, I think you're getting her mixed up with Natalie Angier.
Maybe I am. Anyway,
you bring her up in the Parrot Room and let the... Oh, man.
I want to talk about... maybe you can explain to me David Galertner's plans to supplant Facebook with a Bitcoin blockchain-based system, which I don't understand at all.
We talked a little about... anyway, he hates me. I'll be happy to talk about that.
Okay. I was hoping to only focus on people who either you hate or who hate you.
He hates me.
Which is not hard to do.
And also, I want to talk about... Can I plug my newsletter? Because this is a big day for my newsletter.
Sure. Why is it a big day, Bob?
Because the issue of the newsletter that will have gone out by the time this is posted, which people can find either by Googling Nonzero and Substack, it's the Nonzero newsletter, or by going to nonzero.org, will announce that as of Monday, we will see the debut of a paid version of the newsletter.
Huh.
Very, very exciting.
That is exciting.
You sound excited.
No, I'm just racked with guilt that I haven't done the same thing.
I'm going to talk in the Parrot Room. I'm going to talk you into doing a version of this.
Okay. I'll let on the secret reason why I haven't been very productive in the newsletter department, aside from the fact that I have nothing to say.
That alone is definitely not a good enough reason, judging by many newsletters I've read. What?
No, you can't let that stop you.
No. So there.
Okay, well, I may also take off my Albert Speer-like jacket. It looks really fascist.
Yeah, although it also looks kind of like Joe Biden's arms reaching out to the nation. I'm torn.
What headline do you think they're going to give this? I think it's going to be something Albert Speer related.
Tip of the spear?
Something like that. Hey,
I haven't lost it, have I, Mick?
No.
They say we're getting old. Oh boy. That'll put them in their place. Tip of the spear.
Fucking whippersnappers. Okay,
so we're going to go into the Parrot Room. Thanks, everybody. We'll see some of you then. Okay. See everybody next Friday. What's that?
Wait, I want to give you a little taste.
Oh, yeah, this is a mere taste.
See you later, Bob.
See, I'll tell you. Never gets old.
The actual parrot. Okay.
Yeah, from the Parrot Room. Okay, see you.